Everything you've heard about ankle braces, maybe from people you know in real life, local experts, doctors online like myself, coaches, athletic trainers, might be flat out wrong. And these 5 common beliefs about braces could be putting your ankles at even more risk. But once you understand the actual truth about braces, you'll never look at ankle support the same way again. And maybe that's a good thing. All right, lie number 1. Ankle braces make your ankles injury-proof, or you don't need to worry about strengthening your ankle structures if you wear a brace. This one's got a few facets. There's the ankle sprain aspect of it, then there's the other injuries people wear ankle braces for, in the foot and ankle. So there was a study done in the late 90s that evaluated ankle taping and bracing, and they found that although braces do limit motion, enough torque will still surpass your brace's resistance, meaning sprains can still occur under more intense loading. Now, another study found that torque forces sometimes are just transferred up to the knee or other joints. So even though the ankle might get spared in that kind of injury, you could encounter issues at other joints. But that's also something we'll have to talk about later too. So basically what that means is even with wearing a brace for ankle spraining, if your own body has no way of course correcting, or your body has no way of protecting itself and it's relying on that brace, well, number 1, you could still sprain, but number 2, you could actually damage other structures. So even if you are wearing a brace chronically, and some people do need to wear them chronically, we'll talk about it, you still need to be working on your body's own natural defenses, because that is what's going to keep the other joints up the chain and down the chain protected, and it's what's going to really work synergistically with those braces. So wearing a brace does not mean that your ankle is all of a sudden injury proof. It is far from the truth. And like I said, those studies only pertain to spraining. People sometimes forget about all the wear and tear injuries in and around the ankle that are just as common, such as, peroneal tendinitis or tendinitis on the outside of your ankle, posterior tibial tendinitis, tendinitis on the inside of your ankle, or Achilles tendinitis, or chronic incomplete Achilles ruptures, and that's just to name a few. And yeah, for sure, braces can help lower the energy through these structures and provide compression and support, but they also will reduce the dynamic loading of these tendons, which can lead to maladaptive remodeling or reduced viscoelastic response over time, which in English means they limit the healthy stresses tendons need to maintain their spring-like function, which over time may reduce how well they store and release energy. And honestly, they won't do much of anything for the actual biomechanical imbalances causing those issues. So the overuse of a brace for various tendon issues can actually make these issues worse over time. So for those things, I typically like to put people in them, for a short amount of time, as humanly possible in that brace, and then transition them out. And for ankle sprains, same thing. If you don't have a ligament, we'll talk about this later, but wearing a brace is not just gonna magically make all those issues disappear. Because like I said, in those studies, and I've seen it in real life, and you've seen it on, ESPN or whatever, you've seen people crash right through those braces at times. It definitely can happen. So you need to make sure that your own body is its own best defense. All right, lie number 2. Braces are the same or very similar to taping. The truth is that compared to taping, braces restrict motion too late or inconsistently. If tape is like a Swiss watch, bracing is like a broken and waterlogged Casio. See, athletic tape, when applied properly, can offer much more precise and immediate restriction of motion. It's also much lower profile and can be applied more elegantly to structures of kind of odd shape and direction, like the tendons that cross the ankle or the lateral ankle ligaments. Because the structures that cross the ankle and just the ankle bones ligaments themselves are not uniform in shape, and the direction that a lot of those tendons, pull in are just, kind of weird. And also remember, I said when applying tape properly, so there is a learning curve to it that braces just don't have. So that's another reason why braces are just so popular. The learning curve is really nil. And there's also one huge caveat to this comparison. This is a comparison between bracing and taping directly to skin. If you're using pre-wrap, you are drastically decreasing the effectiveness of the tape, and honestly, the two of them kind of equal each other at that point, just in my opinion. And remember, braces also have some give to them and can be adjusted pretty easily, so the convenience factor also greatly favors bracing over taping. Another caveat to remember is I'm talking about regular athletic tape, not kinesio tape. That is a whole other can of worms that we will have to get to in a whole other video, so make sure you are subscribed for that one. And if you do want to learn how to tape just about every issue and structure in the foot and ankle, as well as customize your shoes and insoles to meet your exact needs, check out my shoe customization and lower leg taping ebook right here. It is packed with customizations and tutorials on how to get your footwear as custom as the pros get theirs. If you want to check that out, I'll leave a link in the description below. All right, number 3, all braces work the same. So when most people think of ankle braces, they think of the most common lace-up cloth, like semi-restrictive brace. But the spectrum of ankle braces has never been wider than it is today. Some braces are meant as proprioceptors, or just meant to give your brain more info on where your ankle is in space, almost like a removable kinesio tape. Others are meant to give some compression and warmth and maybe have some proprioceptive benefits. Then others are actually meant to restrict motion, all the way from like the over-the-counter semi-rigid lace-ups to the more restrictive plastic and textile models to the newer, smart braces only meant to kick in when abnormal motion is happening. Then there's also the rigid custom molded braces that honestly, unlike custom orthotics, aren't really indicated for higher level sports, which we'll actually get to more in the next category. But getting back to this topic, I see so many people come in my office in a brace completely mismatched for their injury. So just remember, different types of braces are meant for different types of issues. I have a whole video on this I go into a ton of detail with, which I'll get into more later on in this video. All right, with that being said, getting into the 4th lie about ankle braces, and that is that braces cause knee injuries. Honestly, this one's kind of a half-truth. Like I said earlier, there have been studies showing poorly designed or misused braces can shift the load upstream. That's sometimes more about poor training or overtraining when injured, or just over-reliance on the brace, not actually the brace itself. So for example, it means if you had an ankle sprain and decided you were just too cool to rehab it and now have zero natural resistance against the lateral ankle sprain, your ankle will just start rolling, and the only thing in the way is the brace. So instead of the brace working with your ankle ligaments and muscles, it's just acting as like one of those concrete dividers you see on the highway. If your car hits it, yes, it'll stop, but it's not going to be pretty. Then yeah, there are times when it is the brace itself causing issues up the chain, and that's when the brace is too rigid, which is usually an issue with custom molded braces. It's not honestly that common with an over-the-counter unless it is a lot of plastic and it's not hinged. Usually it means when those have trouble, it's when there's a plastic brace that goes all the way under the foot and there's no way of allowing normal ankle motion. Honestly, I just don't prescribe them in my office, so I don't really see that as an issue, but I know that they are out there, so just watch out for that. If you're gonna use plastic in a brace, which is great, I mean, plastic in a brace is fantastic, just make sure there's some sort of hinge there to allow normal ankle motion. But the reason that these overly restrictive braces are such an issue is that usually people wear a brace for one issue, right? Like an ankle sprain or one tendon that's having an issue. But a super rigid brace will start restricting motion at other joints that don't need restricting, just because the nature of a brace is that they kind of have to wrap around the foot and ankle to stay on. So you're always going to get some collateral damage if that brace is too rigid. Remember, what happens is that if the ankle isn't moving, then the joints below it will try to compensate, like the subtalar joint, the talonavicular joint. But when they are also locked up, the next place in line, up to the knee. So for this reason, I typically tell my patients, if you need a rigid ankle brace that restricts that much motion, then choose a sport that doesn't require violent movement, or you may want to strongly consider surgery, not only to fix that problem, but also to protect the other parts of your body. And that brings me to lie, let's call it like number 4.1, and that's that braces are less risky than surgery. And while this is largely true in the short term, and let's be honest, it's largely true for a variety of issues, if you have something like, say, a grade 3 ankle sprain, meaning you tore a ligament, it never healed back together, which means there is now nothing protecting you and you're completely relying on a brace. That can work for most things, let's say like a shoot around or just taking a walk or maybe hitting tennis balls cross court. It will not protect you from, let's say, stepping on someone's foot and rolling, or someone hitting behind you on a tennis court. So for those people, I'm usually having the discussion with them that, yeah, you can get away with taping and bracing, but you will run the risk of repeat injuries or injuries up and down the kinetic chain. Whereas with surgery, you could get back to completely normal function. And obviously there is a lot of nuance to this, and each ligament and tendon and joint in the ankle has its own risks and rewards in regards to treatment. But the point is, Just don't assume braces are 100% the best answer for every injury in every person all the time. All right, number 5, and the one that gets me going the most, is braces should be worn for prevention or can be worn indefinitely. All right, listen, I prescribe a lot of ankle braces. There's a time and a place for them, and I rely on them in plenty of acute injury cases. But this one just kind of makes my blood boil. And it's mostly traces back to a single study from 2011 that showed that ankle bracing reduced sprain risk in high school athletes, specifically basketball players. And on the surface, it sounds good, right? Yeah. But that's kind of like saying pouring water on yourself during a shower makes you more wet. It's technically true, but it completely misses the bigger picture. First of all, that study looked at one season, and didn't look at the long-term consequences of routine bracing or the opportunity cost of bracing, what those athletes lost in terms of strength, proprioception, just natural resilience by outsourcing their stability to a brace. It also didn't look at the other structures or what that bracing was doing to those athletes versus ones that relied on natural development or had specific proprioceptive protocols. And unfortunately, a lot of youth coaches ran with that one headline and started slapping braces on every kid, regardless of injury history or what sport they play. Because like, why would you extrapolate to slap a brace on every volleyball player from a study done on high school basketball players? And I see these kids in my office years later with weaker ankle structures, chronic instability, or worse, injuries that happened in the brace. And that's the fallout of treating bracing like a magic shield instead of a medical tool. And I know that might sound harsh, and I'm sure someone in the comments will say, well, I've worn an ankle brace for years, I've never had a problem. Honestly, that is great. I'm glad that is working for you. But I see the other side of that story every day in my clinic with young athletes in braces with no injury history, put there by a well-meaning coach who's trying to protect them or trying to protect the roster of their team, but end up stunting their natural athletic development like strength, balance, long-term resilience. Just because it hasn't caused a problem yet for a person doesn't mean it's the best plan for everyone, especially in a growing athlete. And remember, even in adults, this can be detrimental to your body's natural ability to protect itself and your body's natural ability to rehab itself. Those braces should be worn. Yes, like I said, I prescribe a lot of them, but for a certain time and place. And especially, it's much more dangerous in a kid who's not only maybe trying to rehab an injury, but also is, trying to develop their own body, right? Like you are still going through natural developmental processes that a brace, could stunt. The better protocol, in my opinion, is first acknowledge sports are supposed to be fun, especially for kids. And if you get hurt, you go through the proper rehab protocol and return to activity when your body is ready, not when there's some tournament or just some arbitrary deadline. And if you do suffer from chronic issues such as chronic tearing of your peroneal tendons, chronic ankle instability, talk to your doctor and a physical therapist to develop a plan for safe play, not just an arbitrary half-baked put this brace on, you'll be fine. Because yeah, I'll probably look like a hypocrite sometimes because I have people in long-term bracing for, long-term issues. But it's always paired with something else. I'm always trying to achieve a goal with these people. And if not, if they just need a brace for long-term use, right? Say they can't have surgery. Because yeah, there's exceptions to every rule and we don't live in a perfect world, right? Where you can just perfectly rehab everything. I get it, trust me. But with those people, I'm always having that conversation. And so at least then, if they have all the information laid out in front of them, they can make an educated, informed decision and know the risks and benefits of what they are signing up for. I know a lot of these topics we just kind of scratched the surface of, just because this is more of an overview video, but all these topics will get further breakdowns in the coming weeks and months, so make sure you stick around for those. And one topic that's already gotten a full breakdown is how to choose the right style brace for you, like I said before. So if you want to deep dive into that topic, make sure you check out this video right here. I'll see you in that one.